Okay, today we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look at the Canon VCM trilogy of prime lenses. So we've got the 24mm f1.4, which we're shooting on right now, and we've also got the 35mm and the 50mm, both f1.4 as well. We've actually done reviews on these lenses already when they first came out, but now we've got them all together as kind of a trio. And that's really interesting because there's a lot that these lenses share in common, very deliberately, obviously, so they work very well as a kind of collection to shoot with together. I've got to say, they're so much fun to shoot with, actually, which is really, really nice, but they offer huge advantages if you want to have these in your workflow. And when we've looked at these in the past, we've approached this more from a photography standpoint, but Canon are very keen to point out, and very much when you use these, they're designed as hybrid lenses, and actually, if I'm being totally honest, they feel more video-centric, to me at least, than they do photocentric. They are great for photos, and actually with an f1.4 aperture, these are some lovely prime lenses to shoot things like portraits, and actually all kinds of stuff with. But when it comes to video, they have a lot of features that they each share as well, and there's some things that are incredibly beneficial about the set, which make them fantastic for really any videographer. So like I say, right now I'm shooting on the 24mm f1.4, right? I'm shooting at f1.4, and it is an incredibly beautiful, I mean, the optical quality is stunning. It's really, really lovely to actually look at. But I have already been playing around with these lenses and just switching them in and out in this exact position. So actually just going from the 24 to the 35 to the 50, just switching them in and out is so easy because they share so many characteristics with each other. So for example, the way the lenses are actually set up, the way they feel in the hand is all incredibly similar. You'll notice they're all pretty much the same size and weight as well, which means that handheld, on a tripod, whatever it might be, in a rig, in a setup, these just slot in and out so easily. And even on something like a gimbal, the weight is so similar between the lenses that you can probably get away with not even having to rebalance at all. And if you are rebalancing, I mean, it's gonna be tiny, tiny adjustments. And really, like I say, I think you can just get away with just swapping these in and out. That's a huge time saver when it comes to your workflow, right? If you want to go from a 24mm, more of a wider tracking shot, fantastic. Go in for a 50mm, a more punched in shot. It's going to feel the same, whether it's in the hand, the gimbal, the tripod, whatever it might be. The optical quality and characteristics are also basically the same as well, which means that you are going to get a very similar, if not pretty much identical, style and look to your footage when you switch between the different lenses, just changing out that focal length, which of course does change things like depth of field and the kind of cinematic quality of it, but it means you can rely on settings, on LUTs, on all kinds of stuff like that in the camera that you've got set up. You can keep everything else the same and literally just pop off one lens, pop on another. Okay, I've switched over to the 35mm now, just to give you an idea of what these different lenses actually feel like, because while they are very, very similar, they are going to give you slightly different characteristics based on the focal length, right? So we've got three here, 24mm, 35mm, and 50mm. And they seem like pretty good focal lengths to choose for prime lenses because they are going to give you different feels to the way that the images or the footage actually looks. All f1.4, so you can get a lot of light in through those lenses, and certainly with 35 and 50mm, you can get more of that kind of shallow depth of field look to it as well, especially 50mm. That's going to be ideal for a lot of portraiture work if you want to use them for photography stuff as well as video. And certainly for video stuff as well, like this, you can see I've got a nice out of focus background shooting at 35mm. If I switch over to 50mm, which I'll do in a second, we'll be able to even accentuate that even further by just absolutely getting some separation between subject and background. Now, VCM, which is in the name of these lenses, stands for voice coil motor, and it basically refers to the kind of motor that's inside the lenses, driving things like the autofocus. So this is using a linear autofocus system, which is generally just a lot faster, a lot quieter. It works in conjunction with a nano USM motor, and it means that you're getting really good performance on all three of these lenses, both in terms of photography. It's very, very quick to pick up and then track a subject, especially with something like the R5 II, which I'm shooting on right now, and in video as well. It means that I'm able to move closer and further away pretty seamlessly, not really have to worry about it. I'm just letting the camera do all of the autofocus work. I'm not even setting an autofocus point. I'm just letting it do everything for me, which again, as a solo videographer, is making this incredibly easy. I'm able to just pick up the camera, move it around, reframe, and start shooting. And actually, if I was behind the camera, especially if I was shooting on something like a gimbal, you know, we're moving around, it's a bit run and gun, we're moving quite quickly, we want to get a lot of shots in, I'd never have to worry about that autofocus. I can just rely on it to track whatever subject I tell the camera to track, right? So in this case, people, right? It's going to focus on the eye. If it can't get the eye, it'll get the face. And that means I can just concentrate on camera movement, I can concentrate on framing, and I can just make sure that things like that are all working, exposure, all that kind of stuff is all correct. Let the camera, and in this case the lens, handle the autofocus and never really think about it. And that's true, like I say, across this whole range of lenses. Now, we've talked about how these lenses all share similar characteristics in terms of the size and the weight, that they're all pretty much the same, but they all have the exact same control system as well, which is super handy for just ease of use and just moving through these nice and quickly as well, which is great. They've all got an AF/MF switch, a customizable button on the side, an iris lock as well, obviously the control ring at the front, manual focus wheel, and then this aperture ring. And I say aperture ring, but it actually feels a lot more, and I mentioned this in the reviews of these lenses, like an iris ring that you'd find on something like a cinema lens. And actually, this is where I think these lenses feel much more video focused than photography focused. They're kind of set up as hybrid lenses, so designed for both, but they do feel very video focused in the way they're designed. And that is absolutely clear with the design of this aperture ring. It is just a completely clickless design. So there's no option to click this on and off. We mentioned this in the review. I said it was probably the one thing that I would look to maybe change. I'd love to have a click option on these lenses. I do get why it's not on there though, especially if this is a more video focused lens. It allows the videographer to make these adjustments on the fly with no kind of obvious step when it comes to the exposure. It's just gonna be a very seamless transition, which is super handy. Now, personally, as a videographer, I don't think I've ever actually adjusted the aperture mid-shot, but I guess I can see a situation where you might want to do that. And actually, if you are doing that, it is gonna be really helpful to not have that step kind of transition with the exposure. Just to have a smooth transition is gonna look an awful lot better. So considering that a lot of videographers prefer to have a clickless aperture ring like this, I can see why that is the design, and that is the design across all three lenses. Personally, I'd love to have a click. It's my one thing that I wish I could change about these lenses, but it's not exactly the end of the world, right? And to be honest, using all three lenses together, switching them out, actually moving between the different lenses, it is so handy. It's so much more useful than you'd even think, actually, having the exact same control scheme on all three lenses like this, because it just makes it so straightforward. All you're really changing at any point is the actual focal length that you're shooting with. Otherwise, everything's the same. You can see the aperture you're shooting at on the lens, super handy. I love this. It's something that I didn't realize would be as much of a big deal as it is until I got kind of round to using the three lenses together like this. Now, of course, it goes without saying that all three of these lenses are very sharp, right? The optical quality is outstanding, which you'd probably expect. These are L lenses, which means there is a certain level of quality that is to be expected from them. But they absolutely live up to that, which you love to see. Now, they're not the cheapest lenses out there, right? They are a little bit on the pricier side, but like I say, you are getting something which is really kind of top level in terms of what you can expect, both optically and, I've got to be honest, in terms of the way they actually feel to shoot with. And if you are getting them as a set, they work so well together, no matter how you're shooting, especially if you're shooting hybrid stuff, photo and video. In this kind of time we live in where a lot of us are expected to shoot photo and video, I think lenses like this that can excel at both are just fantastic. But I'd love to know what you think. What do you think about these lenses? Do they appeal to you? Does the whole set appeal, or would you just be going for one? I'd love to know your thoughts on all that kind of stuff. Let me know down in the comments, because I think that's always super interesting. If you were going to go for just one of these lenses, would it be the 35? Or would it be something like the 50mm, maybe the 24? Let me know. I'm always super interested to know that kind of stuff. Of course, there's links to all three of these lenses down in the description, so you can go and check out all the fun stuff, the full spec, the pricing, all that kind of fun stuff, because that's important as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. I will, of course, see you in the next video. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.